Dear McDonald's, your breakfast menu? Fire. 10s across the board. I could be happy with anything, even though I order the same thing every time. Thanks for not judging me. I'll try something new next time. Maybe.
Score a 2 for $5 deal on a sausage McMuffin with egg and more. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
United Airlines is expecting flight reductions at the airport in Newark, New Jersey to linger through the summer and the fall. The airport has spent the last few weeks recovering from that 90-second radar and radio outage on April 28th. And there was a second outage after that, leading to delayed flights and prompting hearings in the U.S. this week. It's raised a number of concerns about flight safety in the U.S., and it's not the only concerning situation to happen with flights stateside this year. I'm Kris McCusker, and in this episode of The Big Story, I speak to George Ferguson, Senior Aerospace, Defense, and Airline Analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence, about all of this and what it means ahead of the summer travel season. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about Newark Airport. Canadians may not be familiar with this airport, so it's kind of a hub, but it's small. Do I have that right?
I don't know that I would call it small, right? So there's three major airports that service the New York metro area, and only two of them are international, right? So major airports again here, right? There are some smaller ones in the region, but the three airports are LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark, right? JFK and Newark are the only international airports in the region. LaGuardia is primarily a domestic airport. Newark is in New Jersey. It's across the river, from New York City to the west a little bit. And because of that, I think really well situated for serving New York State, upper New York State, even areas into Connecticut, down into New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So it's got a pretty wide catchment area. It's probably better situated than Kennedy, the other international airport in the region, because John F. Kennedy Airport is on Long Island, and Long Island can be pretty difficult to get access to. You gotta either traverse New York City if you're on the other side, which means a series of either bridges or tunnels that can have a lot of traffic congestion to get to Kennedy Airport. But I mean, if you're on Long Island, it's probably much more convenient. If you live in New York City, it's much more convenient. So I'd call Newark Airport's, again, sort of really well situated for that. New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, even into, Delaware, sort of stretching into the sort of DC metro area. That's probably their catchment area. So because of that, I think Newark gets a large amount of volume and very constant volume. Newark is kind of airport that has lots of flights arriving and landing every single day throughout the day, not so much sort of banks of flights at particular time. So it means when there's snarls or problems, Newark gets backed up for a considerable amount of time because there's always a constant amount of volume.
Update us, if you can, with the latest on this. There has been weeks of issues at Newark's airport, which, as you just outlined, is very busy and well populated and well visited by people in the area. So, hearing about outages for air traffic controllers that lasted 90 seconds is significant.
Newark Airport, previously to something like April of last year, departure and arrivals from the airport. So not controlling airplanes in the pattern. There's not so much a pattern, but in actual taking off and landing. The taking off and landing is managed by controllers in a tower at Newark Airport that can, when visibility is right, they can see things arriving and departing. But there's a approach control for Newark Airport that would help manage airplanes getting to the airport and preparing to land. That approach control had been done through New York in Long Island. There's a TRACON, they call it. I think it's traffic control, but it had been done in New York for as long as I can remember. And in April of last year, it was decided that this would get moved to Philadelphia. And so Philadelphia probably has a little more capacity to handle this. Or they have employees that are probably not as intensely scheduled because they're not managing three major airports. And so they moved it to Philadelphia, and they brought in controllers from this TRACON in Long Island to come down and train the new controllers. As part of that, they set up a system that would bring information that was going to this facility in Long Island. They sent that information, sort of a remote desktop, if you want to think of it that way, into the Philadelphia control centers. They were training people to manage the airport. Recently, what we had is a loss of communication, with the data information flowing out of Long Island, which there was these sort of noted outages, which caused a bunch of stress with controllers in the Philadelphia center, and some of them have taken leave because they were so stressed out, and this has led to a deficiency of controllers now in Philadelphia for managing arrivals and departures into Newark Airport. And this it sort of snowballed and has really led to a lot of delays at Newark, problems getting flights in and out, which is I think created all the problems for travelers.
And this, I guess, is coming at a time when there was already a shortage of air traffic controllers in the U.S. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout the FAA system, right, we've seen some stresses on it, and we're just seeing a problem attracting controllers to the business. And so, even during the pandemic, one of the areas that was constantly a problem was Florida. And Florida has a lot of flights that were moving through the region. People trying to go to warm weather destinations because they just couldn't get enough controllers to staff the facilities. I think, compared to times in the past when aviation was, I think, a really exciting career for people to pursue, it's probably fallen down the scale. We live in a world where people would prefer to sort of remote work rather than have to go to the office every day. Can't do that as a controller. I think some of the federal pay scales have probably fallen behind the broader population, especially with some of the heavier inflation post-pandemic. And so I think all of this has led to a shortage of controllers, and the federal government hasn't invested as much in systems for flight control, and that means that it's still probably more labor intensive than it needs to be. And so I think all of that has sort of snowballed. Additionally, Newark has had problems as well because they've been in the middle of repairing a runway there, and that's hurting some of the capacity coming into the airport as well. And so I think that's supposed to be finished the next month or so.
Are there any connections through FAA or air traffic controllers between what's been going on in New Jersey and what we saw not that long ago at the Washington airport, the collision between the plane and the helicopter?
So I don't think so. The way I really think about the Washington issue. Look, I mean, I think there can always be more people in the control tower or in the TRACONs, to help the process. But really, I think what the collision down in D.C. boiled down to was a controller had asked the helicopter to, they asked it whether it had visual contact with the airplane they wanted it to avoid. The helicopter said yes, must have missed it because it flew right into the flight pattern. I think it was probably a bad idea to really have training flights around such a busy airport as Reagan. But I think at the end of the day, it wasn't so much a lack of people in the control tower, but again, that sort of the process of how the helicopter would move through the airspace and the ways they would keep separation, and really in the pilot of the helicopter.
Dear McDonald's, your breakfast menu? Fire. 10s across the board. I could be happy with anything, even though I ordered the same thing every time. Thanks for not judging me. I'll try something new next time. Maybe.
Score a 2 for $5 deal on a sausage McMuffin with egg and more. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
So when we look at sort of the issues and the shortage of air traffic controllers, is this something that is a misstep by the current administration, or does this go back further? Like, is this years, potentially decades of neglect of this area?
I would call it decades, right? And I don't know that I'd go as strong as neglect. I guess what I would say is, whenever you come up with a budget for the country, there's lots of priorities in the country. Air traffic control is a priority, but it probably never gets funded at the right level. There's lots of technologies that they've employed around the country to manage our airspace. They upgrade over time, but it upgrades slowly. And so I think that leads to more demands on the personnel to keep airplanes separated. And I think that's occurred, probably since the first air traffic control system was put in place. But over the last bunch of decades, it's been underinvested in. And I think it also goes back to, again, recruiting. That's a function of what you're paying labor, the interest in the job. And I think that, both of those have been challenged lately too. Like I said, from inflation, wage scales haven't kept up. There's a certain amount of overtime that controllers make that can help improve some of their income. And so there may even be sort of a little bit of systemic and sort of not full desire to be absolutely fully personneled up. So that all of these things I think have occurred again over decades. And so I'd say we have the air traffic control system that we've invested in for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And it's it's not as robust as it should be.
I know there are hearings going on right now with the FAA and some of the airlines to talk about some of the, issues. Based on your knowledge of the situation, how do you fix this? I'm assuming it's not something that can be corrected quickly.
It's not going to be corrected quickly. And I think you do have to improve the technology. I think it'll cost billions. I'm thinking tens of billions of dollars. It will take a long time to roll out. You have to be very, very careful about how you roll out new ATC systems, right? Because you don't want to mess up the existing system while you're doing it. You want to make sure everybody's safe while operating in airspace. So it's a slow process, but I think it begins by higher investment in the air traffic control systems. Again, to take the pressure off controllers, to not require as many controllers. And then I think it takes higher wages to draw more people into the industry, maybe even promoting the job, promoting the benefits of the job a little bit more too. I'm not